Welcome to the All of You podcast, where we believe healthy relationships are created by growing individually and pursuing a healthy relationship with yourself.
So let's take a deep breath. Settle in and grow together. Fancy seeing you in our living room.
Yeah, the fire's kind of cooking, so hopefully it's not too loud in the background. It's been cold.
Yeah, it's particularly cold in our house because we heat our house with a wood stove. So you have to be extra patient getting the house warm. I think that's why, and it takes a little bit of extra effort to heat the house. So maybe that's why we're a little more cold.
Yeah, I don't know my thought process around that, but I question it very often when I'm going out in the cold to get wood, and I go, why did I make this decision?
You were in a bad place when you made this decision.
I made that decision in a weird time. It brought me a lot of cozy comfort, and I think that's what I was looking for. I was grieving, and I was having to heal. So the wood stove literally was like a baby blanket for me in my grieving time.
I hate to laugh at that. I think that's a really wonderful thing, and I very much enjoy the wood stove, but it being the central heat of the house is an oddity, that's for sure. It's good ambiance though, especially at Christmas.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, we should just hop right into this one because this is a topic that could go anywhere.
Yeah. So the topic we're going to discuss today is red flags in relationships. And we, believe it or not, we do a little pre-planning before we hop on the mic. And in the pre-planning, it was a fascinating discovery of a conversation that we decided, actually, let's not do any more pre-planning. Let's just get on here and get a little philosophical on this one.
Yeah, I think I said to you.
Well, I asked, red flags in relationships is a really big topic. There's so many red flags we could discuss. What do you want to highlight? And your response was,
I don't know if I believe in red flags.
Which I think for most people, they'd be like, well, we should probably scrap the episode. But for us, that seemed like a really fun one to jump into.
Yeah, I do believe that there are red flags for you, and you are everyone. I just don't think it's black and white. And this is often anyone that listens to this podcast, anyone that knows me, I don't do black and white very well.
Wait, did you wear gray today on purpose?
I did not, but that would be funny.
Taking your stance on
gray life.
Repping that gray life.
I had a hoodie on until 1
Christian.
minute ago, and the fire got so hot that I had to pull off this. You started calling me what?
Christian.
Why?
It's a joke, but it's the main character in 50 Shades of Grey. That's his name.
It's one of my best friends, so I was like,
oh yeah, weird. Yeah, that would be weird, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I hope that's the name of the character if my memory serves me well.
Never seen it, but anyway, so red flags are a lot of times like black and white, I think, and they're used in all different forms. So I kind of want to go high level, and that's like how I start with anything, right? From a high level, what is a red flag? Like, what do you define a red flag as? Not what are red flags like as examples, but what is the point of saying red flag? Like, what is that term? What's the definition of that term?
I would say it's like the equivalent of like a caution sign, a danger sign, look out ahead. So it's you should be careful. You should proceed with caution. You might need to get out of a situation, be on alert, be aware, take care of yourself.
Yeah, so I guess my stance is I think that concept is great. I think that to me is like your filter for your picker. When you're picking a life partner, like we've said it before, we said this, I think the day or a day after I met you, I remember, I think it was that night we were watching the stars when we were camping. And I remember I think it was that night, or maybe it was a different night, but I think it was while we were camping when I met you. I said something like, yeah, a partner, I just see it as basically that person receives the most important seat in your life when you marry someone. They, it's such an important seat choosing a partner that you're going to do life with. And different people give that person different levels of control in their life. And I think that that's debatable, like how much you should let your partner in. I advocate for choosing a really good partner that you can let in fully, because I think that gives you the connection that you're actually looking for that's fulfilling. Some people would say don't ever like sign a prenup. Don't ever let your partner in fully to everything you have. That's dangerous and scary. And it's like, yes, it is, but also trusting someone is a really beautiful thing. Anyway, I think because that seat is so important and it's so critical, you said it last night, it's the biggest decision that you can make. And for anyone that thinks that we just have these conversations on microphones, when we're not on the microphones, we talk like this to each other 99% of the time. Like last night, we sat down at 7:30 on a Friday night on the couch and had dinner, and we didn't turn on the TV. We didn't turn on a movie. We chatted until about 10 o'clock and then fell asleep. I think we turned a show on at 10 and we're asleep within 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're talkaholics.
Yeah, we love chatting. So anyway, red flags are a great filter for your picker. Like your picker should be really, really good. You should try to pick the best partner that you possibly can for your life. But no one's perfect. Red flags, the concept is great, but I think there's a lot of flaws with it that are shame based. So like if we're dating and I see you have a red flag, what is the benefit of me really calling it a red flag to you? Like that's, if I say like that's a red flag, or let's say I'm talking to a friend about you and you were manipulative at your worst. We got in an argument, you got manipulative, and I'm talking to a friend and a friend goes, that's a red flag. I guess this is a question. Does our society view red flags as a pause, or does our society mostly view red flags as they are not dateable? They're now bad. Run, basically.
That's a tricky question because I think that's personal to each person. I don't think society has an established, everyone agreed upon stance. I think there's also yellow flags and there's red flags. And a yellow flag is a little bit more of like a caution sign, wait and see. And I think red is more, you should consider getting out.
I think I've seen too many times where a red flag is actually just a trigger in disguise. I'm triggered. I'm hurt. You did something small. I'm now overreacting and I'm triggered. And so I call it a red flag. Whatever, instead of doing my work, you know?
Wait, are you saying who's triggered in this scenario?
Me. Like let's say we're dating and I get really triggered. I now might very easily call whatever you did a red flag and disguise it as
because you're triggered.
Yeah.
You think what I did is the red flag?
Yeah, like that's super common, I think.
Yeah, I think in what you're explaining, the moral of the story would be when a red flag arises in your mind, in order to be fair to the person you're dating, you have to check in with yourself and go, is this really a red flag, or is this triggering to me personally because of a wound within me, and I actually need to do some work to heal the wound?
Yeah, and I think it doesn't leave room for love. Like if you're on 3 dates with someone and they get super manipulative and something comes up, you have to work late, you have to bail on the 3rd date. Like you just can't make it and you have to bail. And they get triggered and go off on you. that very likely could be a red flag. And you like, nope, I'm not dealing with this person, right? And fair enough. But what if, just what if, they've done a ton of work on themselves and they're very healed in 99% of all the other areas of their life. But when someone bails on them, that's the one trigger they haven't healed yet. And so you now write that partner off completely but you may have just missed a good one. You know what I mean? So here's what I would do. This would be my advice. Take it or leave it, whatever. Let's say that happens and they blow up on me. I have to bail on the third date and they blow up on me, obviously triggered. If I'm me now, like old me would have been like, what the heck? I'm getting out of this situation. Me now with my tools and who I am, I could very much go, hey, I need to take some space right now. I really didn't appreciate your response. It was really hurtful. And I think can you give me a little bit of time before I respond to see if I want to go on another date with you? And then see how they respond to that. And like give them an opportunity to do their work, you know? They got triggered, but is triggered a red flag? Are you looking for somebody who's completely healed that is never going to get triggered? Because
and I think that's where it's a spectrum, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
we all get triggered. We all get triggered actually 10 to 15 times a day. It's not whether you're looking for a partner that gets triggered or not. It's looking for a partner who doesn't react to their triggers. And yes, we all can be guilty, even the most healed person, maybe not, but like when you are actively healing, you do react better to your triggers. So depending on their path and growth will kind of reflect their reactions to their triggers. I think that if someone blows up on you and they never come to awareness that that's not appropriate, for me personally,
that's a red flag.
yes, because they don't have the awareness that they did something wrong. I think if they were to blow up and go, I am so sorry. Like, I totally responded poorly. You didn't deserve that. I'm going to work on it so that doesn't happen again. Very different. That's someone that can make mistakes and take accountability.
Yeah, so maybe like we said, we wanted to get into this conversation before we actually formulated our thought because we thought it would be an interesting conversation to verbally process this together. So I haven't done a lot of thoughts on red flags. Like this is kind of just a wing it conversation a little bit. And I actually think you're right. I think that is the red flag. So here's kind of my possibly, I won't commit to it yet, but here's possibly my stance on it is I don't think red flags are the behavior. I think red flags are the ownership of the behavior and the accountability. So like I've said it before, you're going to hurt me more than anyone in my entire life. All I need is accountability and for you to take ownership and to apologize and try to do your work to not do it again. And the reason I say you're going to hurt me more than anyone in my life is because you're the closest to me and you're human and you're flawed. And when you mess up, sometimes it can be very painful. When your partner misses your birthday, it's more painful than anyone else in your life probably, right? So it's just more, the closer someone is, the more chances they have to hurt you, the more trust you give. And so you're opening yourself up. When you love someone, you're opening yourself up to the pain that they could cause you.
Yeah, but how do you know that someone, like, it's a little bit of a gamble.
Yeah, it's scary.
To say, I'm picking someone who I think will grow to this level.
Well, I can speak to how I saw that with you. You're a little hard-headed sometimes.
Super.
And you don't like change.
No.
And so that to me that was a red flag to me that you didn't, when you told me at one time, you're like, I don't like change. I was like, whoa, because life is change. So you're going to get rocked if you don't like change. But when I actually looked at you, you weren't a person that liked it, but you threw it at yourself constantly. You were always looking for areas that you were weak in and working on those areas. And you moved to Santa Cruz for 4 years, not knowing anyone up there, to my knowledge. You always were forcing yourself into situations for growth and change. And so, yes, you didn't like it, but when the push came to shove, you did it. I saw time and time again that when it was hard, you chose to do the hard thing. And I was like, this person, when it gets hard, when our relationship is, we're not in a good place and we go, we need a change, you're gonna choose change. And this is another like green flag, I'll call it, when we were 3 months in and we got like into a really triggered place. Like I got triggered and then you got triggered and we were just in a bad place together. We easily could have given up on the relationship. And you looked at me and you go, let's go to couples therapy. And I go, we're 3 months in and you want to go to couples therapy? Like, there's people who are 15 years in that don't want to go to couples therapy. You'd rather go to couples therapy than give up on our relationship and then go just play the field again? Like, that showed me that you were super committed to willing to do the hard thing and you were willing to do the work. So when I looked at you, I didn't see somebody that I was looking for perfection in. And you changed my entire mindset, because at the time I was ready to bail on our relationship and just go play the field because I didn't want to do the work. Like personally, like I really didn't want, I had done a lot of work and I didn't want to do anymore. I was good. And when you chose to do the work and like push me to do the work and go deeper, I just had to look at it and go, I no longer want you to be perfect. I'm okay with where you're at and I'm going to accept where you're at, and I'm going to know you're going to continue to chip away at all these areas that are hurting us time and time again and do the hard thing, you know? So it's almost like red flags and green flags. Like yes, you can use I'm not against the labeling of those things. I'm not against the terminology at all. I think, like I said, it's a good filter for your picker, but it also can be a mute point when it comes to like, is the person willing to do the work to grow or not? There's one green or red flag. Like, all right, when it gets hard, when you get really triggered. So using that analogy of the person third day in, I have to bail, and you blow up on me because you're a person that gets really triggered when plans get changed. And then I give you the chance to respond well. And if you text me back like 20 minutes later and you go, hey, I just really want to apologize for how I showed up. This is a trigger of mine and I'm working on it. I know about it. I'm actively working on it. I've done a ton of work on myself, but in this area, I'm still weak and I'm really sorry. And I promise you I'll do my work and try not to let this impact you anymore. Then you turn that scenario into like a, whoa, holy crap, this person is doing their work. So if I just hang on a little longer, like they're going to heal this. They're going to work on it. And you kind of let them show themselves, you know?
So really the green flag is someone willing to do their work.
To me, yeah.
I guess the philosophical question there would be, what are there red flags that are so red that it's worth leaving even if someone is working on themselves?
I would say that it's always your choice to leave a relationship if you want to. Like, I think you have the right to leave unless you've made the commitment of marriage and you have kids. Like maybe it gets a little bit convoluted there where I think it could be wrong to bail just for any reason. But right or wrong is really up to you. And I think if it's early enough on and you need to leave the dynamic just because you want to, like if you haven't made a commitment, you have the right to walk away. And I don't think people give themselves enough permission for that. Like if you're in a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5-year relationship and you haven't made commitments, you have the right to walk away if you need to walk away. You know? Like you just got to walk away. If you want to, like don't hang on. Hanging on longer is not the move if you deep down intuition know like you're not going in the same direction. Hanging on to a relationship too long because of guilt, if you're there because you're too scared to hurt their feelings, that's not love. Like if you're not willing to love them and you're not gonna love them, then staying is wrong, right? So yeah, if you want to change and stay with them and love them, then love them through it. But if you don't love them and you don't want to love them and you don't have plans on trying to love them, like leave them and let them get hurt and get wrecked and level up. It's tough. It's cutthroat, but there should not be this attachment where it's like I'm scared to hurt somebody's feelings. I would never wanted you to marry me or stay with me out of guilt because you had invested time with me.
Yeah, I don't even know if people stay because of the guilt of invested time. I think it's more not wanting to lose the invested time.
So I once heard someone say, I wish I could give the credit. I think it was Matthew Hussey. It was before you. I was dating somebody. I knew it wasn't right for me at the time. And I was like dealing with this. I was dealing with this exact thing. Like, should I leave or should I stay because I felt bad already, like I had a really hard time. I personally had a hard time breaking up with someone. It was so mean. It was so hard that I'd stay too long and let it linger and then hurt them more. And that sucks, right? So I was listening to Matthew Hussey. I think it was him. And he said, if you want to know how to break up with someone, if you should break up with someone, think about if you would date them today, if you would choose them today, if you were on a date and choose them today. And I don't think he was perfectly right on this, but let's say you have 10 years with someone and they're annoying you and you wouldn't choose them that day, like don't bail. But if you really consider it and say, this partner is not right for me and the only reason I'm here is because I have a year invested already, that's going to just compound. And in 5 years or 8 years, you're going to have 8 years invested and you're going to still be stuck in the same relationship, And it becomes a huge problem of guilt. Like if you need to leave. They will heal. They will. And you will too.
Right. I do want to, in this conversation, and this is like a tricky one, I want to hold a little bit of space for abuse in relationships. And I say it's tricky because that is also a very wide spectrum with many, many, many shades of gray. It can be as small as manipulative about where you spend the holidays. Like, well, if you loved me, you would know how important it is to go to my family's and you would spend it with me, right? Like, so it can be as small as minor manipulation and it can go all the way into your partner isolating you from your family or physical abuse, emotional abuse, right? Like, there's a very, very wide range. And I think I just didn't want to not allow for space in that in the conversation that like it's hard to even know how to fully address this one because
abuse is a red flag, period. Yes, and we do coach people and we love coaching people and we do sometimes give advice. We typically don't give advice, but sometimes we will, but this is more thought-provoking podcast than it is supposed to be meant for like go and do this, So first and foremost, like check in. We are huge fans of listening to your intuition. And if you are called to love that person, like you have manipulated me at times. Totally. I have manipulated you. If I felt called enough to love you, to boundary you when you manipulated me, and like when you're at your worst, I'm called to love you, and so and I also have the tools to protect myself. So you can grab the biggest boulder and try to huck it at me, and I have a bigger shield now, and you do too. So like that's how we do our relationship, and that's what we want for everyone. We want for everyone not to be evaluating partners based on if they're perfect or not, or don't have any red flags. I want you to be so freaking skilled, like you're a ninja, where you could go date somebody that has the worst red flags and still protect yourself. You have every tool in the shop and you can protect yourself all day long. And if you feel called to date that person and love them through their wounds, then you can help them heal. And it's really just at the end of the day, if that's the person that you feel called and choose to dive into and heal.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize though, if you don't have the tools to protect yourself and therefore you're just absorbing and taking in abuse, that's not what we're speaking to here. Because if you don't have the tools and you are in an abusive situation, again, not black and white, but like I would want to tell people to leave.
Like check in on your situation, and if you need to leave, leave. Absolutely. Like don't ever feel like you need to stay and put up with abuse and tolerate abuse. Let's say you're in a relationship that is emotionally abusive for you. You put up boundaries, and if that person doesn't respond well to those boundaries, you're not safe. If they won't respect your boundaries and your boundaries are placed, they're clear boundaries to protect you, they're not controlled. That's the thing too, though. It gets so complicated because so many people are paired at equal points. If someone doesn't have good emotional awareness, they likely choose a partner that's not that emotionally aware.
Well, we choose partners who are wounded to the same depth that we are. And that doesn't mean the same wounds, but that means the same depth. So typically, someone who is really healthy is not picking a really unhealthy partner because subconsciously they know better, and vice versa. Like you pick people who are on your same level. And that was really hard for me to hear when I thought that you were the problem in our relationship. That actually is what switched my mind into going, oh, I have work to do too. Because
Why
did I pick you? If you are, and you, not to say you were, but like just for example, but if you are so wounded and so, name the thing, manipulative, egotistical, all these like bad things, what does that say about me that I picked you? You often hear that when someone breaks up with someone. They're like, they were, and they name every like derogatory thing under the sun. And in my mind, I'm just going, so why'd you pick them? So why'd you pick them?
And for context, I wasn't a terrible human, but I did have some major red flags, I would say. Like if we were coaching our younger selves when we first met, we had red flags, and I wouldn't sit there and say you need to leave. Like I would never give somebody the advice to leave or to stay. I think that's totally up to the individual.
I think unless their safety is in danger.
Well, yes, but that doesn't mean they need to end the relationship.
If you're being physically abused, I would say you got to leave.
Yes, you need to leave. You need to move out. You need to get yourself safe. But if that person does their work and you still feel called to love them and love them from afar, and I'm a believer in redemption stories. I don't believe that somebody's blackballed forever.
100% agree with that. I believe people can change. I believe people can heal. I believe that's what we are in the business of helping people to do. However, if your safety is at risk,
you have to set boundaries.
Yes, and that can look like physically distancing yourself.
Yes. So I think we were saying the same thing. You were saying leave. You need to leave. And I'm saying, yes, you do need to leave. That I'm not saying, when people say leave, they mean end the relationship. I'm not saying you necessarily have to end the committed relationship. Like if you treat me terribly, I'm going to boundary the hell out of you. And that's going to be painful for you and it's going to suck. and I'm still going to tell you I love you, but that's my integrity. Like, that's just where I'm at. I feel called to love you. I married you. I did not take, this is my second marriage. I did not take that decision lightly, you know? I'm going to stay with you no matter what. So what does that mean? I'm committed to loving you. Sometimes loving you could be protecting myself. So if you got physically abusive, if you were like, I would leave you, I might not talk to you for a year. I'm not ending the relationship. Personally, you could end it, but I'm not. So like, how does that feel for you?
Well, I mean, I don't have huge feelings about that to the extent that like I don't think that's gonna.
Yeah.
If it
But
seems a little
like,
out of the realm of
but
me
like,
needing to contemplate.
do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, yes.
leave the
I do
premise.
hate boundaries though when they're imposed on me. So like,
Everyone does.
yeah, everyone does. So like, because we do boundary each other at times. Not very often. I would say it was more towards the beginning to middle of our relationship, but I hated it. Hated it so much.
I want to rein this in a little because I think we're getting wild on the convo, but I think when we're talking red flags, we're talking about, we can't really talk, and this is like that's why this topic is really difficult, because we can't talk about it the same way for somebody that's 3 dates in, 5 dates in, 3 months in, a year in, as we can with somebody who's 25 years into their marriage with 4 children.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
That's
and
fair.
we just said,
Yeah.
like, don't stay in the relationship because of investment or whatever, but there is a reality to commitment. There's a reality to life circumstance. There's a reality to the situation. And this is where I think it's even a more, maybe this is uncovering a more important topic than even red flags, which is, what level of abuse are you willing to tolerate inside your relationship? And are you comfortable putting up boundaries with your partner? Because I would say my boundaries and how I'm treated, my tolerance shouldn't change whether we're 2 dates in or 25 years in. And I choose how I'm treated. And if you don't treat me well, I'm going to boundary you. If you're not ready for yoga and I want to be on time and it's 45 minutes before class and I know we need to leave 30 minutes before class, so like I'm not in the middle row because I hate being in the middle row, then then I'm leaving. I say I'm leaving at this time, and like I'm not gonna let you continue to make me late. Like that's just a small way that I choose to not be treated unkindly. And I choose to put up a boundary. Like, I'm letting you know, hey, I'm leaving in 15 minutes for yoga. Like, if you, I'll be a little reasonable. I'll give you grace always. I'm not like a monster, but
I just want to say for the record, we haven't had to take separate cars yet. I have made it to the cutoff time to be to yoga on time.
yeah, but I've
cut
waited
it
for you.
closer than I should have one too many times.
And I've self-abandoned by a
okay.
minute or two a couple times.
Yeah.
But
we haven't had to fully go separate car yet.
Yeah. So that's just a small way. Like, you just got to learn how you want to be treated and then set those boundaries and watch how people respond to them. It's really as simple as that. Like, protect the container of you. You're a human being that needs to be nourished, that needs to eat, that needs to sleep, that needs to be loved, that needs a relationship that's not toxic. Relationships are so great for healing, for love. We need community. We need relationships in our life. We need that human connection. And sometimes those connections are actually not good for us and they get bad. They grow mold. They have dysfunction inside the connection, inside the relationship. There's manipulation tactics. There's enmeshment. There's codependency. There's comparison, there's jealousy, there's resentment, and it can really start to do a lot of damage, and then the relationship can die. And It doesn't have to die. But most people, and I was one of those people that couldn't see the long game of a relationship really. And I couldn't handle, because of my abandonment wound, the boundaries. Like if we were dating and you were like, I need a month to think about things and to reset myself, my nervous system, I would be too frantic to give you that month freely, you know?
You
Whereas
mean like
now,
early when we were
yeah.
dating? Yeah.
Whereas now, if you came out of the blue, like, Dave, I got to tell you something. Like, I'm not well, and I'm actually hurting, and there's some dynamics inside of our relationship that I think we're unaware of, and I need a month. Like, I would be shocked. I'd be like, can you, like, it would be hard, but if that's what you decided for you, like, I'm not going to argue with you. There's no there's no arguing with your personal boundaries. You are in control of you. You have complete autonomy. So if you're like, I'm going to move out for a month, I don't think you would do that lightly. I don't think that would happen, first of all. But if that did, like, I got to deal with it, you know? And there's responsibilities you have, and I don't think you'd just leave and dump all your responsibilities on me. Like, we'd figure it out, right? But if that's what you needed, we'd have to figure that out. And that's a different value system inside of a relationship than what's typical, where it's like, well, what about my needs? So if you leave for a month and my needs aren't met, my emotional needs aren't met, my physical needs aren't met, I'm worried. I panic. And then I make a decision like, well, the relationship's just over then. I'm going to go sleep with somebody else. Like, I think that's a lot of people's situation. And then that breaks the relationship for good. And people can't see the long game in waiting and trusting and waiting for a partner to heal. And that's the biggest takeaway that I have, I think, bar none, from our relationship, is when you're negatively impacting me being able to see the long game and give you patience, because you're a human being. And you'll say it to me sometimes. You're like, I have work to do in this area. I know it, but I can't grow faster than I can grow. And I need you to give me time to heal this. Like, I need to heal at my own pace. You say that. That's exactly your
I tell
words.
you that all the time. Yeah.
And I go, shit, you're right. That's literally my thought. I go, and I stomp off and I go, yeah,
Yeah, I'll
I
even
just
say, I'll be
gotta,
like, you can boundary me if you need to, but I can only grow as fast as I can grow. And I'm
yeah.
allowed to go at my own pace.
And what helps with trust there for me is when I say, hey, okay, I'll leave you be on this. Like, I'm not gonna bring it up again. Just promise me one time, like, I need reassurance that you're gonna do your work and you're gonna grow in this area, and you're gonna read the books, you're gonna take the classes, you're gonna reach out if you need help, you're gonna ask me for support if you need help, you're gonna go inward and figure out what's going on with you. You're gonna do all that work, and I don't have to talk about it. And you go, yep, I got it. And then I can just leave you. But that's because we have trust there. Most people feel like they need to keep nudging their partner, and it's like, ultimately, that's probably because you ignored the red flags in the beginning, that they don't want to do their inner work. So what about the people that are stuck? Like we talked about 3 dates in, how you evaluate a partner. Like, I think the red flag is they're not showing up well. They're not taking accountability for themselves. They blame, shift, and you can start to spot those things. They do those things and they don't take accountability for them, and so therefore it's a red flag. If they take accountability and clearly show signs that they want to work on themselves, that's the green flag. Do you agree with that too?
Mm-hmm.
So what about 25 years in and there's abuse, emotionally, manipulation, and the person just doesn't want to work on themselves?
Again, it's always a spectrum, right? So, like, even emotional abuse, there's a spectrum. There could be like a stubbing of the toe, and there could be a car accident level of abuse, right? So how I would how I would guide would depend a little bit on that, but I also think the answer would always be step 1 is boundaries to keep yourself safe. So, regardless of the level of abuse, how are you putting boundaries in place to keep yourself safe from it?
Can I play the client?
Sure.
When I put boundaries up, they get more mad. They start getting more abusive. They break things, or they just overreact in front of the kids. They slam doors. So it's just really tough. When I put the boundary up, they just overreact more.
That's a common reaction when boundaries are set. It looks like you have two choices. You can set the boundary and they can overreact, or you can self abandon and they continue to mistreat you. What path do you want to take?
Yeah, it's so hard for people in this moment to make that decision, because if I continue to self abandon, nothing changes, which is the route most people, I think, take until they can't take it anymore. It's the quiet life. Most men live quiet lives of desperation. Most women live in this abused situation where not most, but a lot of women, where they are afraid to speak up and then disrupt their whole life. We don't want to deal with the actual repercussions. If the reality of the situation is I put up boundaries and my partner overreacts, doesn't respect them, so then I have to move out and disrupt our whole life, then that's the reality that we're living in. So if I keep faking it, it's never going to change. But that seems better to some people because they don't want to lose the house. They don't want their partner to leave and go cheat. Most women, if they put boundaries up with their partner, like, if you keep watching porn, I'm not going to have sex with you, or something like that. Like, most women, if they do that, then the man goes and cheats. And they kind of subconsciously know that the man is just going to it's just going to blow the whole thing up that they'd worked so hard to build. But, this is just, I want to sit in compassion for people, because this is right here, the red flags. Because most of us aren't 100% aware, or we're not healed enough to really spot red flags early on. We get into relationships because somebody's hot, they're attractive, they make money and can provide, they have a skill set. It's really hard to turn down love from an attractive partner. And so you have this super good looking guy who's attractive, and just, you're young and it makes you feel good that he's into you. And then all of a sudden you're married for 10 years and have kids together in a house, and you don't want to blow up your life, and you're starting to spot red flags as you heal, as you get awareness. So you then have to start putting boundaries in place with your partner. And I think a bigger conversation would need to happen. I think it would be like this. If I'm your client, I would say to you, it sounds like I really don't want to stay stuck. I want things to change. I'm not okay with the mistreatment that's happening, the emotional abuse, the name calling. So I'm going to put up boundaries. I know my partner can't handle those boundaries. I know when I put those boundaries up, they're going to flail, and I'm not going to be able to take it. So I'm actually going to have to go at this a different way, where I sit my partner down and tell them, like, hey, I'm changing. I have to change. I have to grow. It's time. I'm going to be boundarying you when you mistreat me. I'm going to protect myself. And you can leave me and you can blow up our entire life and you can go find somebody that puts up and tolerates abuse or these name calling. You can put up with, like, if that's your decision, I respect it. Like, I need to let you go, and you're gonna have to go find somebody. We're gonna have to co-parent. A lot is gonna change then. Or you can grow with me, and I can give you some books, and I can, like, if you've chosen a partner and you've been with them for years and you're committed and you're in this life situation with someone and they don't want to grow, and you know they don't want to grow, it probably needs to be a sit down conversation that's like, I'm growing, and I'm like, you've been slowly growing on your own. You've been listening to podcasts. You've been reading books and doing this work on your own, and you want to bring your partner in, but every time you talk to them, they blow up and they're like, I don't want to do that. Like, oh, self-help stuff or whatever. And it's like, all right, well, the reality is I got linked up with someone early on that doesn't want to do their work. So the whole thing falls apart, and I can grow, and then they can grow apart, or I can try to bring them along for the ride and give them that opportunity, or I suffer in silence.
I like that. I think what's tricky is it takes someone who's done a lot of work to be able to facilitate that conversation. I think the average person actually has to start doing a lot of the work and growing and healing before they're able to reach that point. I think a lot of the times, especially in unhealthy relationships, it impacts self worth. And I know for many women, they don't have the self worth to be able to have that conversation. There's these like thoughts of doubt in their mind of like, well, I'll be alone forever.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. Like, those doubts, those thoughts are real. And you know,
The thoughts are real. That doesn't mean they're true.
yeah, like, I've been working with men who are in the middle of divorces, or on the cusp of one, or unsure if it's going to happen or not. And the typical thing that I see is really what I call like a little bit of a double-mindedness. And it's natural. Like, I was this way too. So it's no criticism at all. It's just a state of like, one day you create a picture in your mind. Like, if you're on the verge of a breakup, or you're thinking about a breakup, or you're thinking about putting boundaries in place and all this, your mind naturally goes to the future thoughts. And you have a devil and an angel and like, you like a good and a bad thought, and you attach these thoughts. So you picture two different lives immediately. You go, one life is all the good stuff. I'm going to be single. I'm going to get to date. I been in this relationship so long, dating apps weren't even a thing. And now I get to see the market out there. And now I get to, men oftentimes will go, now I get to sleep with all these women and just whatever. Right. And they attach to these thoughts of like, I get to snowboard again, or I get to pick up good guitar, and I get to do all these things for myself. And like, not all these things are bad. It's great that you have a desire to love yourself again. But then there's this other thought that's like, I'm going to be alone forever. How are people going to view me? I'm going to lose so many friends and family. Like, are these friends going to stick with me by my side through this? Or all the years of investment, the photos, or whatever, the kids, the half the time with the kids, or whatever your custody schedule is, child support payments, like whatever it is, that's the negative side. And one day you're riding the high of all the positive stuff, and you're like, let's go. I want this divorce so bad. I can't wait for it to be over and me to be free. And then the next day you're getting hit with the low, all the hard things. That's when people go back and they go text and like, kind of like, oh, should we really do this? And they're not grounded in their decision, because they haven't started from the right place. I don't think a lot of people, it just happened to them and they're here. So they're just attaching to this good or bad thought, where it's really like, I wouldn't advise anyone to really sit down and be like, I want to leave this person or not. What you want is to be loved well. you want to be healthy. You want to protect yourself, and like you create some values. Like whether we stay together our entire life isn't a thought in my head, because if you got really unhealthy and I had to boundary you to the point where you didn't accept it, and I'm always going to do my work. I can control that. I'm going to choose. I'm always going to do my work. And I know you are too, but like, let's say you went off the rails and you didn't do your work anymore. I don't think the right call is like, I'm going to leave you or not. It's like, I'm going to boundary you. And if you don't respond well, I have to keep boundarying you and then eventually the relationship dies. You file for divorce or whatever because you're so far gone. Like, then that's just that outcome, you know? I think we try to control the outcome of like what life we want. And instead, I think the heart should be, I have to be in a healthy relationship, and start there. Like, I have to be in a healthy relationship. And to build a healthy relationship with someone else will take just as much time as it's going to take to probably build one with your current partner. Whether you choose to do one or the other doesn't really matter to me. Like when I'm coaching someone, it's like, it's not about whether you're leaving your partner or not. It's like, are you becoming the person you need to become so you can be in a healthy relationship? If your partner has 1 ounce of intelligence and they see you doing that, they're going to start being drawn to you. If they're backing off, then it's dead anyway. You know, it's going to move further and further and further. So like don't tolerate abuse. Boundary it and see what happens. But yeah, I get what you're saying where like people need to do their work to get to that point, but also that's where having a third party, a coach, a therapist in the scenario is helpful, at least on your side. Maybe your partner won't go to couples therapy with you. Find a good person who's not like, you need to leave this relationship, because that's why people don't want to go to therapy too. They don't want to go to someone and then
Well,
the
and it's
person's
also
like,
why they don't talk to their friends about it and they suffer in silence.
yeah, because everybody's like, you can't put up with that. F them. You need to leave. And it's like, well, I don't want to leave. I love them. So if you're mistreating me really badly, I'm not leaving, but that means I'm going to be snowboarding and surfing a lot more because I'm not going to be investing in here, and I'm going to boundary you, and I'm just going to have to like hang out with friends and do other things. And I'll be around. I'm like, hey, are you ready yet to do your work? Are you ready yet to do your work?
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy response, but because you are healthy and you are able to respond healthily, I think it's a struggle for I just want to hold space for how hard that is for most people because of so many reasons, whether they're struggling with their self-worth and believing that they don't deserve to be treated the way that they are, or they're scared to change the dynamic because they like having that feeling of control that like the devil they know is better than the devil they don't. And so there's this fear around making any type of change, or they don't have the tools to put boundaries in place, or they might be a people pleaser that thinks putting in boundaries in place is mean and they don't want to be mean. There's so many reasons why it's so hard for so many people. And that's a big part of why there are a lot of unhealthy relationships out there, and why half of marriages end in divorce is the lack of tools, access to them, and general health.
So yeah, okay. I love that. And I thank you for holding space for those people, because I was kind of coming at it probably from like this is the right way to handle it,
Well,
which is good,
it
but
is how you would currently handle it.
yeah,
But like, and I don't say this to like throw you under the bus by any means, but like when we first met, you didn't have those skills.
no.
And I didn't have those skills. And we were like a friggin' hot mess express because we didn't, we truly were. And so, like,
Yeah. So thank you for holding space for those people. And what what would you tell someone that's this episode just confused the shit out of them? And they're like, I don't know. I'm scared. Like, let's say they're just like, I don't know how to move in either direction. I'm in freeze mode, and my body's in freeze mode, and I'm just terrified, and I don't feel empowered to make any decision.
I mean, the first thing I would do is validate that.
Yeah.
That's so real. And of course, you feel frozen. This is scary and overwhelming. And it's okay to feel that way. You have permission to be where you're at. But if you want to see change and you want to grow, there is help available. And there are things you can learn slowly over time. It's not a light switch process, but there are things you can do to better yourself. And that's a very generic answer because it's a very generic softball you just kind of lobbed over. Like how what people can begin to do depends upon what they need to do personally. But I just hold a lot of space because I didn't know in the beginning. I knew we needed to get help. That's as much as I knew when shit hit the fan in our relationship. I was like, couples therapy or like
Yeah,
we gotta, we have to do something. I don't know what it is. I don't know how to do it, but like I know I'm I know that we're either breaking up or we're doing work. And I don't know what that work looks like. So
yeah, and we
I
broke
hold
up for a month.
compassion. Yeah.
We did break up for a month and didn't speak. We did not speak for at least, I think we were broken up for technically probably like 6 weeks, but for almost a month, I think it was, there was no communication between you and I. Not even a single, like, and we didn't stop like following each other, but I'm pretty sure we probably muted each other.
I muted you.
I don't even think I
Yeah.
posted. I was going inward and I was healing. And then when we got back, it wasn't perfect, but we were doing our work. We were each doing our work, and we were each failing and hitting setbacks and struggling. Like how we got here is not, we're two healed people that met. Very much not our story. Very much not our story. We're two very, very flawed people that found healing together and loved each other through some pretty big red flags on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
But every time we brought up to the other one, like, I'm not going to be able to tolerate this, the other one went, I love you enough to go and heal this and not keep showing up this poorly. Like you're mirroring to me that I'm not your standard and you don't deserve to be treated that way. And those things said to you that way, or you don't deserve my bad energy in that way, or just to dump on you, or whatever it was that the boundary we set, we just started setting those boundaries with each other. And it was so hard, but so much trust came from when we started to respect each other's boundaries. And when I boundaried you and you go, all right, I'll do my work. I got me. I'm going to do it, and I'll come back in an hour. And you'd look at me and you'd be mad. Like at first you'd be like, I hate this, but I'll do my work and I'll come back in an hour and I'm going to give you the best apology you've ever seen, but not right now. And I'd go, all right. And like weird little like things happened in the exchanges like that just built so much trust to be like, wow, like when stuff is hard and I bring my feelings to my partner and they're like, they're not going to take it personal. Like they're going to do their work and they're going to show up better. And like let little stuff go too. Like it's not a perfect science, I don't always boundary you. Sometimes you slip up, you say something I don't like, and I just go, this one's not worth fighting about.
Yeah.
This is
The art of
not,
letting go.
yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm not going to be I think I often did this in the beginning when we started healing, is overly criticizing or being a mirror constantly. And that's like very tiresome if someone's healing, and that's where you have to let them, they're going to do their work to grow. They're not going to be able to grow in an hour. So they're probably going to make this mistake 1,000 more times. And in 1,000 times, this mistake will be so much smaller. It won't be this big thing. It'll be a lot smaller version of it. And that's just how growth works. Like I had to get to a point where I go, I accept you for where you're at, knowing that it won't be this way forever, knowing that in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time, you're going to be such a better version than you are now. But also, I have to be patient and not expect you to just heal overnight.
Yeah.
Okay. Love you.
Love you too.